Okay, this is Lesson 2 Exit Ticket from Module 3, and we're going to go over it. Number 1 is to show each expression on a number line and then solve. So our expression for A is 5/5 plus 2/5. So when we draw our number line, we are going to be in terms of fifths. So when we start at 0, we can write that as a fraction as 0 over 5. And we need to get to our first fraction of 5/5. So I simply just count as I go. 1/5. 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5, and I label that. Now I know that when I have an equal number of parts to my whole, so 5 out of 5, that's equal to 1. So 5/5, sorry about that, 5/5 is equal to 1. I'm going to mark that on my number line. And then I need to add 2/5 to 5/5, so I simply just count on 2 more. 1 more fifth is 6/5, and another fifth is 7/5. So 2/5 plus 5/5 is equal to 7/5. Now, I want to simplify this fraction because when my numerator is bigger than my denominator, that's called an improper fraction, and I don't want to leave answers in improper form. I want to put them into a mixed number. So I can do that by noticing that 5/5 is equal to 1. So I can pull out that 1. And then I can say, well, what do I have left over after that 5/5? I have 2/5. So 7/5 is equal to 1 and 2/5. Okay? B is 6/3 plus 2/3. So again, I draw my number line and I always start with 0 or 0/3 in this case because we're talking in terms of thirds. And then I count on, so I need to get to 6/3. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is 6/3. Now I want to mark where my 1 is, and I know that 6/3 is bigger than 1 because it's over the total. My total or my whole is 3, and 6 is more than that. My total of 1 would be 3/3, so I count 1, 2, 3/3. That's equal to 1, so I know that 6/3 must be equal to 2. So I've done 6/3 on my number line. Now I need to add 2/3. So I add 1/3 here to make 7/3, and then I add another third to make 8/3. So 6/3 plus 2/3 is equal to 8/3. Again, I can represent that into a mixed number by pulling out my whole number of 2 and then seeing what I have left. I have 2/3 left, so 8/3 is equal to 2 and 2/3. Alright, number 2 says to express each fraction as the sum of 2 or 3 equal fractional parts, rewrite each as a multiplication equation, and show part B on a number line. So this first part, express each fraction as the sum of 2 or 3 equal fractional parts. Well, when I want to split something up into equal parts, that to me says division, which we've already done. So if I take 6, my numerator, and I think about how I can divide 6 into 2 equal parts, I can take 6 divided by 2. I can do that as a basic fact. 6 divided by 2 I know is 3. I could also do 6 divided by 3 equal parts, which would give me 2. So this A could be done 2 different ways. If I want to divide it into 2 equal parts, I'm going to use 3 as my numerator. So 3/9, and I'm going to write it twice. So 3/9 plus 3/9 is equal to 6/9. And we could also write that using multiplication by taking our fraction of 3/9 and multiplying it by the amount of times we had to add it. So 1, 2 would be 2 times 3/9. The second way we could do that let's write that as into 2 equal parts. Okay, so if we have 6 divided by 3 equals 2, we can use 2 as our numerator. I'm sorry, 3 equal parts. So 2 as our numerator. So we do 2/9 plus 2/9 plus 2/9. So we take this as a numerator and we do it 3 times. And that would get us to 6/9, right? 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. And we can write that using a multiplication equation by taking our fraction of 2/9 and multiplying it by the amount of times we had to add it together. So 1, 2, 3, 3 times 2/9. Okay? All right, 15/4. This we can only do one way, because if you take the numerator of 15 and you try to divide it by 2, you realize that you really can't do that nicely. 15 is an odd number, so if we divided 15 by 2, we'd get a decimal number, and we don't want to do that when we're trying to work with fractions. So in this case, we are going to divide 15 by 3, or split 15/4 into 3 equal parts. We know that 15 divided by 3 is 5, right? And so we can use 5 as our equal part. So if we have 5/4, we'll have to add that 3 times to get to 15/4. So 5/4 plus 5/4 plus 5/4 is equal to 15/4. Okay, and we can write that as a multiplication sentence, or a multiplication equation, by saying 5/4 times 3, or 3 times 5/4. Now, the last part of this question was to show part B using a number line. So we're going to do that. Let me draw my number line down here. Okay. So remember, we always start with 0, and in this case it'd be 0/4. Now our numerator, we know we have to get to 15/4. So we know our end point is 15/4. Okay, and so we're going to have 3 markings on here. Each one is going to be equivalent to 5/4, a 5/4 move. So the first one we count, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is 5/4. Okay, so that's 1. Then we go again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're at 10/4. Okay, so that's 2. And then we go 11, 12, 13, 14, and then we get to 15/4 to show 3 times 5/4.